Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Mysteries and Oddities video. Alright, let's go ahead and let's do another entry here. This one actually based on a past suggestion. This one wrapping up essentially this series for this go around. I'm going to give this playlist a rest and then start focusing on another new series soon. But yes, as far as this suggestion, I initially had some hesitation, mainly because a lot of the information still seems pretty suspect. Like that definitely seems more of an urban myth or something else. Like it's almost too good to be true, and there's so much details that are questionable that I thought to myself if I should include it here. But ultimately, stuff that I present is just basically up for everyone else to decide, whether it's truthful or not. And I'd love to hear what your comments are as to whether you think this thing really happened or if something else is more amiss, something more sinister or devious when it comes to the truthfulness associated with this. But you're looking at pretty much the only known picture associated with this village. It's known as Hoer Verde, and otherwise known as the village that vanished. So let's go ahead and let's talk about all the interesting, but again, suspectful information associated with this Mysteries and Oddities suggestion. So here's essentially what happened. As far as the village itself, Hoer Verde, it supposedly was listed or located somewhere there in Brazil. The problem is I couldn't even find anything as far as a map as to its exact location. That was kind of like the red flag number one. Even the tiniest village somewhere out in the world, Google Maps, Bing Maps, and others will definitely at least have something showcasing, if not where its existence is today, where it was at least in the past. But as far as its actual location, there's no known 100% accuracy to it. All we know is that it supposedly was, again, somewhere there in Brazil. This was a village that had about 600 people, and in it, it had people from young to old, because there was a school there. More on that here in a minute. And then there were other villagers that lived there. Who knows when exactly this village first started? Maybe it was earlier than the 1800s, 1700s, or even before that. But at least up until 1923, people recognized its existence and the villagers that were there in Brazil. So I guess somewhere along the way, either people that knew this village and its location would travel to it periodically. And the reason I mention this is because, lo and behold, sometime in 1923, whenever somebody was there doing another visit, and this gave me the idea, like, this isn't just random. Like, people wouldn't just suddenly come across this village just randomly. Like, they would have to be visiting it on a routine basis, because it would just be too much odds for someone in the middle of Brazil to just suddenly come across this village unexpectedly. They would definitely have to be doing business or some other type of visitation purposes with it before. But yes, whoever that person or persons was, when they went to that village that time in 1933, lo and behold, everyone was gone. Now, what I mean is this. The homes were there. In fact, this is a village that had some well-built homes, not like traditional type of huts that you would think like a middle of nowhere in a forest village would have. No, these were well-built homes. They probably had some infrastructure on them. They had roofing, doorways, and so on, but they were abandoned. They were still there. Like, the homes were still there. There was no signs of destruction, nothing in terms of, let's say, suddenly having some catastrophe causing the people to leave, or look to like for the people to leave. No, the homes were still there as is. It was almost as if the people were there one moment and then they were just suddenly gone another one and another moment. And so they were walking about trying to see, what happened. They went after house. They stopped by in pretty much every domicile. Nothing. No existence as to these villagers or what happened to them. Then whoever these people were actually went to the school that was there. This is, again, a tiny village, 600 people, but still they had at least some kind of school there. And then on that blackboard, there was only one thing written on it. There was a phrase that translated to, "There is no salvation," although based on the way it was written and the language there in the Brazil area, made it seem like it was a loose translation of it, something along those lines. Someone had written something where it says, "There is no salvation," in chalk on that school blackboard. And then where things got even more mysterious is this. There's apparently a gun that was found in that village. I don't know if, I think it was actually within that the actual school itself or nearby within one of the villages, but I'm sorry, one of the homes within the village. But yes, this gun was found, and within it, that's where it was forensically examined, and it was realized that it was recently discharged. In fact, it was charged just the day before. Whoever was there visiting and finding everything gone, everything abandoned, they in turn realized that this gun was discharged then. No indication as to where the bullet had gone to or where the gun was aimed at. There was no visible, let's say, telltale marks like showcasing something in like let's say in the wood associated with the homes, like it was blown apart, any kind of shell casing, nothing like that. But instead, the indication was the gun was used. And then that was it. There was no single other clue as to what happened to these 600 people. No tracks, no listings anywhere, no maps anywhere indicating signs, people writing notes, nothing along those lines. Again, as I said a minute ago, it's as if one moment these villagers were there and then all of a sudden they were gone. They were just completely gone, swallowed from the earth itself, and as if they never existed there. Other than, of course, having that mysterious note there on the blackboard and the gun that was recently discharged. Those are the only clues there. Now, people have tried to examine what happened, where the theories have been abound plenty when it comes to it. On the more fantastical side, it's the idea that this was maybe a huge alien abduction. Of course, that's again on the far end when it comes to an explanation, because one always reads about alien abductions happening more on an individual level. 600 people, and that would definitely be something out of the ordinary. Even if we're, talking about alien abductions as something ordinary. There's the other idea, more realistically, that the villagers fled for some reason, and that was either because religious purposes. It all ties into that blackboard that I was mentioning earlier, whatever was written there mysteriously as far as there is no salvation, whatever that was referring to. There's the idea that this was something religious, like the villagers decided en masse, and I'm sure like the little children and others had to follow whatever their parents were doing, but the villagers decided that they wanted to leave because of whatever their belief was causing them to make them leave, something along those lines. And so they they were gone. But of course, there would be some clue as to where they would have gone. 600 villagers, as I was reading several articles, it was right in this analysis, 600 villagers leaving somewhere, there would be a telltale sign as to people seeing them somewhere. You can't just have 600 people disappear and not sporadically show up elsewhere en masse at a location out of the blue, and then have some, people realize that they're coming from another village or the village known as Hoer Verde. But otherwise, there's that theory. And then the other one is this, and this is probably the most realistic one as far as an explanation. That location there in Brazil was going through a political climate change, and it was a pretty fierce one. There was a lot of guerrilla warfare that was happening, and so the villagers must have realized that their village was in turn going to be a victim of this political warfare. They were probably going to be absorbed either willfully or non-willfully, and they were going to have to face consequences if they decided not to do something in terms of, let's say, joining whatever side was forcing them to join. And so when that occurred, they just decided to leave. And then when that happened, it was to avoid either conflict, violence, murders, other stuff like that. It was to ensure that everyone would stay safe. But again, that ties into what I talked to a minute ago. You have 600 people leave, they're going to show up somewhere. And then when that happens, people are going to be able to track down where they came from, and that could lead to more problems, at least for them, if it was someone else finding out about them that wanted to make sure that they complied with whatever they were doing, like whatever the bad people, quote unquote, were doing. But yes, that's at least the most realistic explanation. But again, so many signs, so many indications, so many red flags. I was mentioning earlier, the village, its existence before has never really been chronicled anywhere. Its location has never been chronicled as well in terms of any maps. No reason as to where this village would have been afterward, even now. Like there is no indication on any maps or anywhere else where it's at now. And then also the 600 people just leaving, it's going to have some recurrence. It's going to have some reverberations when it comes to them being found somewhere. Even though this happened back, in this case, 1923, you're going to have ancestors of these people, sons and daughters and granddaughters and so on, that if the villagers were real and they actually, let's say, moved elsewhere, those people would eventually have those kids and then granddaughters, and those people would know information. But nobody has come forward with anything along those lines. So again, a lot of suspect stuff, but I'm just presenting this for an analysis, and I'd love to hear what your thoughts are with regards to it. But yes, please post those comments below if anyone has anything else I might have missed, maybe more information on the local side. I was even reading articles of people there locally from Brazil that said they never heard of this village, this Hoer Verde village, and they think, again, and I tied it at the very beginning, that it could be something more than an urban myth, something man-made, just created, maybe even during the early days of the internet. And then that way it just took off and it became its own little legend of sorts. But I'd love to hear again what other people say on the local end. But that's pretty much it. That's all the information associated with it. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care.